I'm J.R. Church. Welcome to today's analysis of the news. Israel is in the news these days. In fact, almost every day you'll find out something that Israel is doing or not doing, that you'll find the Palestinians are yowing here and the Hezbollah there. God is preparing Israel for a great future. When Jesus comes, He's going to rule from Jerusalem. Well, I want you to know that over the past century, God has been preparing the Jewish people. And Gary Stearman has written an article called Israel, the Preparation and a Secret Weapon. Gary, tell us about that secret weapon God has given the Jews.
Well, J.R., it happens to be nuclear in nature. Today, all the talk is about Iran and nuclear weapons. Do they have them? Will they be able to launch them? And of course, Ahmadinejad is bragging that he'll have nuclear capability in the near future. J.R., that's elementary compared with what Israel has. God gave Israel the bomb, and there's no better way to say it than that. I'll just say it in raw language because it's the truth.
And the first mathematician who came up with the formula was?
Albert Einstein. A Jew in good standing, a brilliant mathematician who came up with the formula for mass energy exchange, which led others, like J. Robert Oppenheimer, also a Jew, to develop the engineering necessary to create a working atomic bomb. And along with them was the father of the hydrogen bomb, Edward Teller, also a Jew.
Wow.
And what are the odds? Why are all these Jews developing nuclear power?
Isn't it amazing? You don't find Gentiles in that little clique of people who actually invented nuclear weaponry. And then, of course, the big one, the neutron bomb. Tell us about Mr. Cohen.
Mr. Cohen. By the way, Cohen is a title. It's a title for priest. But Samuel Cohen is called the father of the neutron bomb, and he is said to be the most brilliant of all the nuclear engineers. Many decades ago, he went back to Israel, and he became the head of the Dimona Nuclear Research Project, which is said to be the world's most advanced nuclear research station. Samuel Cohen is said to have invented not only the neutron bomb, which is very specific. It kills human flesh without destroying property. The neutron bomb was just the beginning. Apparently, if what I read is correct, he also developed other nuclear weapons so advanced that they don't even have names.
Exotic weapons.
Exotic.
Israel has exotic weapons that nobody knows about. And Gary, they're going to pull them out and use them one of these days.
So said Zechariah. As a matter of fact, in this article, J.R., and I'm looking here in the, this happens to be the July 2009 issue of Prophecy in the News. I'm reading from Zechariah, chapter 12, the 5th and 6th verses, where Zechariah says, "And the governors of Judah shall say in their hearts, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength in the Lord of hosts, their God. In that day will I make the governors of Judah like a hearth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour all the people round about on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem." Twice there is this expression used here, the governors of Judah. Well, in Hebrew, that happens to be Elufei Yehudi, which, if you look up that term in a modern Hebrew dictionary, Eluf means major general. In other words, we're talking about high military leadership. And Zechariah is saying that the high military leadership of Judah will be like a torch of fire.
So Israel's military is prepared.
Yes.
Israel's prime ministers seem to have an air of weakness about them, especially Mr. Olmert, who was finally ousted in the elections, and now Netanyahu is again back. The last time Benjamin Netanyahu was the prime minister, He went back on his promises. He was not a strong man. He was not hawkish. He was more of a dove looking for peace, and bent over backwards to try to placate the Arabs. But the Arabs always come back with, I guess it's because Israel appears weak. But Gary, Israel is not weak, are they?
They are not weak, and all the prophets testify to their latter-day strength. As a matter of fact, Israel has been dutifully attempting to satisfy the demands of the West in their appeasement policies. And they've been going along, and they continue to go along, and it does give them the appearance of weakness, but the Bible says that in the end they're going to show up in great strength and be victorious.
You know, Gary, I think one reason why the war is coming against Israel is because the Arabs really think they're weak and can't handle it. They're going to find out the hard way, aren't they?
They are. Indeed they are.
Wow. Well, we don't know what's going to happen this weekend, next week, the next week. We don't know exactly when the battle is coming, but I want you to know there's a battle brewing. And one of these days, the Hezbollah or the Hamas in the south or the Syrians will test Israel's mettle. And they will be defeated again. Israel has never lost a war. Now, when Israel went into Lebanon, you remember a couple of years ago, and they finally came out, they said, we lost that war. Well, they didn't lose the war. They just stopped before full victory. But when it comes down to get the push and shove, Israel has won its wars and will continue to do so. For God is on Israel's side. Gary, last word?
Last word, Israel has been being prepared for this day for a century or more. And they have been brought through this preparation to the point that they are ready to fulfill prophecy, which means that Jesus could come for us at any moment.
Yeah, does Israel have nuclear weapons? Listen to Zechariah 14:12. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongues shall consume away in their mouth. Does Israel have nuclear weapons? Does Israel have a neutron bomb? Sure sounds like it. I'm J.R. Church with Gary Stearman. Thanks for watching. Have a good weekend. We'll see you again Monday with our analysis of the news.